Hello everyone. For the past 2 weeks I did a lot of optimization on the node editor. Node editor could render a lot of nodes, and also those nodes could have a lot of widgets, so it could have a lot of performance issues. So the first change I actually did is you cannot stack nodes on top of each other, so I included some collision detection. So as you can see, we have one node here. If we create another node, let's say bricks, now they're colliding. Also, if we hide the attribute widgets like this, now it changed its bounding box. So as we can see, now they're colliding correctly again. To actually better see this, let's include the debug render. So that is available in configuration.json file. So we can include this debug by setting true and rerunning the application. So now if we create some nodes, we can see these red bounding boxes which tell us which are the areas that occupy each of these widgets, whether it's actual graphical widget or is it the graphical shape, whatever we are rendering on the screen. So if we create another widgets, we can see the collision. Also, these collisions are done sequentially, so we can create more nodes, let's say like this, and we can select, let's say, these two and collide them with these two, or actually these three and collide it like this. So collision should work in a general case. Okay, so there are some other improvements. As we can see, we are colliding them right on the edge, so we can put some margin. So that is a collision margin. Let's say it's 60 pixels. And then if we rerun the application, create some other nodes, now we see they're not colliding actually on the edges, but there is some margin of 16 pixels between them, which is neat. So this debug information also tell us about bounding boxes of not just the nodes but their connections and the cut line of connections. So let's say if we connect these two nodes in image combiner mix, we can see now we have these bounding boxes for the edges, or even if we are not connecting it yet. So that's one of the advantages. So why I needed these bounding boxes is we could have plenty of nodes, and whenever we move something into this node editor, we should re-render everything. So idea was to kind of have these bounding boxes, and when we move out of the scene, actually stop rendering whatever it's not visible. So I'm not sure, do you see in a task in a status bar, but we have nodes 3 out of 3 and connections 2 out of 2. So when we move out of scene, let's say down, and when we hide this mix, it should tell us that then we see 2 out of 3 nodes. So if we do it like this, then you can see now we stop rendering one node. Also, we now don't see any connections, so we are not rendering any connections. So even the not just that we are not rendering, even the animation of connections stopped. So if we see if it's in the middle, let's say, or whatever it is, if I move out of the scene and go back, it's continuing where it stopped. So it's very neat optimization to render as least as possible. Also, what you can figure out, because we have now even the collisions, we cannot create plenty of scene. We can zoom out, but maybe 10 or 15 nodes can be created. Another thing is we are seeing a lot of widgets inside of nodes. These are attribute widgets. You can see this one has a lot of them, like I'm not sure, 10 of those widgets, and also 10 additional sockets. So as I said, we can hide them, in which case we are not rendering them anymore. But also because we can show all of these widgets in all of the nodes, they can accumulate, and there can be plenty of those. So now there is limitation also to how many nodes can be extended. So if we create another one, we can see the first one that extended is now collapsed. So if we create another one, now another one collapsed. So we can expand it back again, but there is a limit to actually now 3. That's available in the settings. So we can change it in the extendable nodes. That tell us now it's 2, but if we say it's 5, we can extend more of those. But if we say 2, it's gonna collapse multiple. So that's one of the optimization methods. Because we have collision, now we also had to cover creation of new nodes. So if we say we try to connect node here and we see it's not available position, let's say we are creating flower node, it's gonna try to circularly find the position in which we can create another node. So if we move even more nodes here and try to create this one here, it's gonna try to create it on the next available position. Cut line for the nodes is also optimized. So if we render it like this, we can see it's also bounding box, but there is limitation to how many points we can draw. So if we move it like this, you can see the bounding box is changed, but also we are deleting the previous points. So as we can see with this cut line, we deleted one of the connections. We can delete another one. So we have bounding box for the cut line also, and there is a limit to how long cut line can actually be. There are still a couple of issues I have to fix. One of those is, let's say we make these connections and move this node to the left, and see, because of the cubic interpolation of these connections, now our bounding box is not correct. Our bounding box is actually defined by the input and output sockets, but in this case we are moving it outwards to kind of get this nice curve. So in which case, like if now I'm moving out of the scene, and now when I stop seeing the socket, my edges is also stopped being rendered. It's not bugging me yet, but it's an issue. So that's one of the issues. Second is that, let's say this node is on top of this one and we extend it, it automatically is colliding with it, but the collision is not, it doesn't happen. So I have to make an event, in which case if I'm extending one node, I have to make something like blow up modifier, which would just push this node outward, or maybe push this node to another possible position. I'm not sure yet, but that's one of the issues. So that is it for today's devlog. Thank you guys very much for watching, and see you next time.